This is a clip from Basketball at the Bar Live. Next up, we have the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers switched it up last season by trading their franchise player in Domantas Sabonis to the Sacramento Kings for a young stud in Tyrese Halliburton. They've moved on from quite a few guys in past years, including Victor Oladipo and some of their franchise players like Paul George. Now they're sitting at 25-57 with the third worst record here in the Eastern Conference. They have picked 6 in this year's NBA draft. And let's talk about things they can do to help improve their team this offseason. Real quick, before we do that, I just want to break down the depth chart and the salary cap situation to give everyone some context here. So first off, starting point guard for the Pacers, Malcolm Brogdon. They have Tyrese Halliburton starting at the shooting guard position. Buddy Hield, the starting 3 for them, and Chris Duarte, who had an incredible rookie season, is backing up Buddy Hield at that 3 position. TJ Warren is the starting power forward for them, and Miles Turner is starting at center. A lot of injuries to TJ Warren and Miles Turner this season. It's been a very, very tough year for them. But
Brogdon has had some injury issues as well.
Yes, but let's look here at the salary cap. Buddy Hield is the highest paid player this season, but he will not be next season. He's making $20.5 million next season and $18.5 the year after that. Malcolm Brogdon, officially the highest paid player on this team. He's making $22.6 million next season, and he has 2 more years after that. Miles Turner is entering in the last year of his contract at $18 million. Ricky Rubio is expiring, $7.8 million, and TJ Warren is also a $12.7 million expiring contract for this team. TJ McConnell, $8.1 million next season, 2 years after that. Jalen Smith is entering in the 3rd year of his rookie deal, and so is Tyrese Halliburton. Chris Duarte will be entering in the 2nd year of his rookie deal at $3.9 million. Isaiah Jackson entering in year 2 of his rookie deal. And then we have a couple young guys making $1 million to $3 million per season. This team's got almost $30 million in cap space. Calvin, what are your offseason needs for the Indiana Pacers?
Can I say everything? This team is really hard. I mean, I like a lot of these players. I love Malcolm Brogdon, but all indications are pointing towards Indiana going full rebuild mode. Malcolm Brogdon's name has been mentioned in trade rumors a lot. I like Miles Turner a ton. I love Duarte and Halliburton. They've got some really good pieces here. However, I think they continue to blow this team up. There's been a lot of talk about will they trade the 6th pick. New York Knicks are rumored to want to move up. Other teams around the 10 to 12 range. So there's a ton of different ways or different things that this team can do in the offseason. But I think they're hitting the total reset button here. I expect Malcolm Brogdon to be moved. That creates a lot of cap space for them. They stick with the young guys in the backcourt, Halliburton, Duarte. I don't know what their future plans are for Buddy Hield. You know, as everybody out there who watches us on a regular basis knows, we cover the Kings on another channel, and Buddy Hield is a big headache for most organizations, especially when you make over $20 million. So I'm not sure what their future plans are for him. Also, given the fact that Duarte is a up-and-coming shooting guard, with a lot of potential, a lot of promise, really, really good value pick there for them. I'm a big TJ Warren fan as well, but I don't think he'll be back with this team next year either. So just like we've been talking about with these other 2 teams here, it's all about adding talent and assets right now, as many as you can get, because you've got some foundational pieces, but you need to bring in new faces and new talent around them. But I think Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton together is a great start.
Yeah, I agree. This team is one of the hardest teams when you look at what they need to do, because they could go in multiple different directions. And, I thought the same thing last season, right? When we're hearing the rumors about LeVert, Sabonis, Turner, who's going to get traded, they said, oh, we're only going to trade one or two of those guys because we're retooling or we're rebuilding on the fly. We're not trying to tear it all down. They made some other moves that made you think maybe they are trying to tear it all down. I think that Tyrese Halliburton was their guy that they targeted in the Sabonis trade. Buddy Hield was a throw-in for me. So I think you had a great point. And what do they do with Buddy Hield? Does he get traded to a contender? Do you let him just kind of play out this contract and let him leave for nothing? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'd keep an eye on a team like
Do you play him
the Lakers.
35 minutes a game and tank?
Yeah.
And potentially lose?
I'd keep an eye on the team like the Lakers or another contender that needs shooting to potentially make a trade for a guy like Buddy Hield. But I think you're absolutely right here. I think this team is in the middle of tearing it down even further. I expect Malcolm Brogdon to be traded as well. I expect TJ Warren to maybe just be let go this year in free agency or a sign and trade. It didn't cost them much to get him. He played exceptionally well, especially in the bubble, and then he's had a ton of injuries since then. Yeah. So he might just kind of be a salary cap clearing event this offseason. Miles Turner is where the big question mark is for me on this squad. I absolutely love Miles Turner. Great rim protector, can shoot the three very, very well. I think he's a very underappreciated player in the NBA. He is the prototypical big man that I want on my team these days. He mentioned last season that he was unhappy with his role on this team, and he wanted to be more, have a bigger role. He wanted to be, the franchise player. I think he has an opportunity here if he says, okay, Indiana, I'm expiring at the end of this year, but you could re-sign me, and I'm willing to stick around for a few years. I'm only 26 years old. I'm willing to grow with this young core, and I will be your franchise player. I think that's a perfect opportunity for him. However, he could see the writing on the wall and say, this team's in for a multi-year rebuild. I want out. And they could decide to move him for more, assets. Ultimately, I think he stays on the team. And I think you're right. Tyrese Halliburton, Chris Duarte, and Miles Turner is a great core to start with. We'll see what they do with the draft pick this season. Personally, I would draft a guy like Shaedon Sharpe if I could. If he falls.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he falls to me, I'm drafting him. And I got Halliburton, Duarte, Sharpe, and Miles Turner. And I'm just trying to figure out who's going to be the four for us.
Yeah.
I think that's a great start. But like I mentioned, there's a ton of different ways to go with this.
If the Knicks offer you Julius Randle and a pick swap, 6 for, I think they're 11 or 11. Are you doing that?
That is a very, very tough question.
Yeah.
Very, very tough. Because if I feel like there's a guy that I can grab at 11 that will fill the 3 spot, and there are quite a few players that can do that, I'm feeling pretty good going into next season. But for me, it's all up to Tyrese and Miles Turner. Yeah. I think these are my 2 young guys that I'm building around, and I want them to have some say in what the team's doing. If they're willing to stick around for a rebuild, then no, I'm not making that trade. But if they're like, we need to win now, we don't have any patience, I'm either considering shipping them out or I'm making that deal. Because that's the thing with a rebuild.
It would probably be something like Julius Randle for Malcolm Brogdon and swap the picks.
Yep.
I would have a hard time saying no to that deal if I'm Indiana.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, looking at pick number 11, you got some good guys. Johnny Davis. If you do want to go big, Mark Williams is there. So there are some opportunities, but yeah, I think this fan base needs to, like I said with the Pistons, they need some patience here because this could end up being a multi-year rebuild. But the fact that you have Tyrese Halliburton, Chris Duarte, and Miles Turner definitely gives you some hope for the future. And I like where this team's going. It just might take a little while.
Yeah. Yep.
Any last thoughts on the Pacers?
They got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they do.
They got a lot of work to do.
If you're a Pacers fan, make sure you hit that like button down below and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Calvin and I are here. We're going to be here all offseason talking about the Indiana Pacers and many of these other teams around the league and what they can do to help return themselves to the NBA playoffs. We're going to be covering the draft lottery, we're going to be covering the draft. We did cover the draft lottery. We're going to be covering free agency and a bunch of other fun off-season events. So if you love basketball, please hit that subscribe button and join us we love talking about basketball. Milwaukee Bucks lose to the Boston Celtics in 7 games. Their second best player, Chris Middleton, has been injured pretty much the entire postseason. He's making $37.9 million next season, and he's got a player option for $40 million the season after that. Let's jump here into the numbers with the Milwaukee Bucks and try and figure out what they can do to improve and get back to the NBA Finals and win another championship. So I mentioned Chris Middleton is under contract for 2 more seasons. Giannis is under contract for 4 more seasons, 42.4, 45.6, 48.7, and a huge player option in 2025, 2026 of $51.9 million. Drew Holiday's under contract for 3 more seasons, 32.3, 34.6, and a player option at 36.9. Brook Lopez is entering in the final year of his deal. It is an expiring $13.9 million contract. Serge Ibaka is officially off the books, as well as Wesley Matthews. We have Pat Connaughton returning if he chooses to, player option for $5.7 million. Bobby Portis, $4.5 million player option. Grayson Allen is under contract for 2 more seasons, one at 9.6 and one at 10.3. George Hill is under contract for 1 more year at $4 million. Calvin, this is a ton of money between their top 4 players in Giannis, Middleton, Holiday, and Lopez. I'm not a mathematician here, but this is looking like towards $130 million for those 4 guys next season. That is over the salary cap. That doesn't allow you a lot of flexibility or a lot of room. What does this team need to do? What are the biggest question marks regarding this squad? And what can we expect from them this offseason and next season?
Well, I think Phoenix here in the chat hit the nail on the head with this team. Most teams that we see as championship contenders are kind of in the same boat every offseason, right? Like you have your top 3 or 4 guys locked up. A lot of times you're committing a lot of money to them. So the question is, how do you fill out the rest of the roster? You know, with these veteran guys that have been around, like a PJ Tucker, good 3-point shooters, 2-way players, guys that you can get on the mid-level exception or veteran minimum deals. That's how these teams are built. Their issues going into this offseason, number one, they got to get healthy, right? Like everybody does. They need Middleton back. But like Phoenix said in the chat here, Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton both have player options for next season. Mm-hmm. Bobby Portis was huge for them this year.
He's getting paid.
Career highs in points and rebounds. Career high in minutes played this season. He started 59 games for them when Brook Lopez was out with back surgery. He's probably going to get like 13 or 14 million a year in the offseason. Yeah. I don't think Milwaukee has the cap flexibility to pay him that. So I definitely see him opting out. Connaughton is a question mark for me. I think he's a valuable player and probably is valued by a lot of teams in this league, but I don't know if opting out for him earns him as much more money as Bobby Portis is going to get when he opts out. Yeah. And the question for Pat Connaughton is, does he want to go somewhere else, or does he want to, is he looking for a bigger role like maybe a DiVincenzo was or something like that, or does he want to come back and keep playing for this team and have another chance to win? So he's a question mark to me as to whether he opts out or not, but that's going to determine how they fill out the rest of this roster, whether or not they can get some of these guys back, and who do they look for to replace them.
Yeah, for me, the biggest offseason need for this team is get healthy and add shooters. I think we saw that in the playoffs this year. Giannis needs shooters around him. A guy like that can get to the basket so easily, that's, as amazing of a player as he is, he needs help, right? And how you help out a great player like that is getting shooters. It just takes the pressure off of him. It opens up the lane for him to get to the basket. And it just makes it so that he doesn't have to work as hard for every single bucket that he gets. And then he has more energy towards the end of the game. So for me, number one goal, Chris Middleton needs to come back. He needs to be healthy. I like Drew Holiday. I like Brook Lopez. I think Bobby Portis, like you said, opts out and gets paid somewhere else. I'm mixed on Pat Connaughton. But this team just needs to figure out a way to add some more shooters. And, they kind of screwed themselves in getting rid of Dante DiVincenzo, in my opinion, because there's not a lot of young up-and-coming guys that this squad really has to help push them. Like everyone talks about, you need veterans, you need older players to win in the NBA. Look at the Lakers this season. They had a bunch of veterans, a bunch of older players, and they just didn't have that spark that youth gives them. We saw that with the Memphis Grizzlies this season, right? It's almost like they're too young to know that they're not this good or they're not good enough. It gives you like just an unlimited amount of confidence. That, I think, is what this team is missing. So I think they need to find a way to bring some more youth to this roster. They need to add shooters, and they just need to get healthy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A couple of good questions in the chat here. Do you want to maybe look up what Milwaukee's draft capital is like for the offseason? I think
it's a late pick.
Their pick this year, their first-round pick.
Yeah, pick 24.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question about Brook Lopez. He is getting older, and he carries a bit of a price tag, but I think he's very valuable for that team. He's still maybe not the rim protector that he was a few years ago, but he still is able to help in that regard. Great outside shooter, spaces the floor really well. I think he plays with Giannis very, very well. So I'd probably give it one more year with him, Yeah,
and I would try and bring back Bobby Portis if there is a way. Progressive G saying Carmichael Dave said he wants the Kings to go after Bobby Portis.
There's going to be a lot of interest for him around the league.
And there's
a lot of interest.
A lot of players the Kings want to go after because when you're not making the playoffs, you got to add talent. Bobby Portis is one of those guys that he played incredibly well. He's going to get a good deal, but it's like, is that play sustainable? Have we seen a new Bobby Portis? Thank you so much for watching. As always, please don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. You can join us live every single weekday, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, don't forget to tip your bartender.